Welcome back, CSC230 to part 2 of EX14, where we're just building a Four Seasons header with pics. I wish I did a different pic up here because it's very low resolution. There was some issue with it, but I can always replace it, no big deal. I can always go back to my Photoshop file, throw another one in there, export it, and put a new one in here. But for now, this is my spring image, and what we're going to do is center it on a page. We're going to put a little nav bar below here, below our image, so we're going to make our body our same size as our image. So what we'll do is a little bit of CSS, a little bit of HTML before we get into our JavaScript. So let's go here, and remember, we want to center this on a page. So how have we been doing that? We've been basically giving a width of a body of whatever the image is, with it, which is 1024, and then we're going to put auto margin on either side. We're going to wipe out our CSS. So let's do a little bit of that. Let's go into our CSS and do a little bit. We'll do our reset, and we'll use our asterisk, and we'll just put margin 0. And we could put padding 0 because we may be using a list, so we may want to wipe out that as well. And that's all we need for now. And then also we'll put body, because we're going to be doing some things for body. And we can do a background color. Remember, we can type background, but we have to put a dash color because that doesn't come up for autocomplete right now. But the colors are coming up, so that's good. I'll use antique white. I'll put a semicolon, and I'll click on this, and I'll go a little lighter and hit enter. And I'll refresh this, and that's good. Kind of a beigey color. You could go a little warm if you want. You can go a little warm, I guess. We're working with a farm. I guess that's okay. Even going a little green or something. Although green sometimes can be cooler, so let's see what that looks like. A little too green, but I'll leave it for now. And to center everything, we have to put a width. So we're just going to make the width of our body, and then I'll hit tab, and I'll put in 1024 because that's the size of our image, and I have to put pics, and I'll put margin auto, and we don't have to put anything on the top and bottom. We'll just do auto on all sides, and that should center it, and that's good. And now we're going to put a nav bar that's actually the same width, and let's see if we could do this again. I didn't even start doing this. I didn't practice this, so I'm just gonna do it as I go here, and if I run into problems, I run into problems. If we go into our index, we have a nav bar here. Now there's nothing in it yet. We're going to put some stuff in it. We're going to put probably a list, and we'll make our buttons out of a list. We could use buttons, but we could make our buttons out of a list too. I think we can do JavaScript off of that. As long as we give them IDs, we should be fine. I'll go back to CSS, and I'll put nav, and actually I'll use .nav. Because I want to use the class, even though I could use either, but I'll use the class for nav, and I'll give it a background color, and I could copy this, that way I don't have to type it. And instead of this, I'll go right in here, I'll get kind of a dark green, and see how that looks. Now, since my body width is 1024, my nav should be 1024. Let's see what this looks like. And we don't have anything in there yet. That's why we're not seeing anything for nav. If we go in here, and even if we just do a unordered list, we can do UL. Let's do this. Let's do UL LI times 4 because we have 4 seasons. And then in here, we'll just put spring. And then we'll change it each time. So let's see if that works. Let's do tab. And that's good. And I'll make spring, summer, fall, or autumn, and winter. So those are our 4 buttons. Now that they should show up as a list inside there. Now we're going to want to make these white, and I didn't give these any class names, but we can actually give these ID names as well. We can give the LIs ID names because they're going to be like our buttons. So we can even go in here and put ID equals quotes, and I'll just put button dash SP, and I'll highlight and copy that. And oh, I'm getting an underline there. I can't use dashes with JavaScript. So I think so. So let me just put button underscore SP. I think that should be okay. And then I'll just paste this, paste this, paste this, and I'll just change them to SU, FA for fall. And if you do something else, you can put something else, and WI. So I'm just using the 2 letters of all the seasons, and I'm using button. I could have just put button 1, button 2, button 3, but I thought this would be more specific. So now they have IDs. They're specific, so we can use them when we want to contact them with JavaScript. That's why we're doing this, because we want JavaScript to be able to connect to these buttons and with an add event listener and then control something else. So we'll put that first, and let's see what we have. Let's see what we have going on here. And that's about right. We have this stuff here. And notice when we take away the padding, it puts the bullets over there. Now we're going to make these inline block. We'll have to get rid of some space above our nav. I forget what does that. I've seen that before, but we can kind of tweak that if we need to. But I'll go back here, and what we'll do is these LIs that we have here, we can even give them a class. We can even call them buttons so they're all the same. Remember, we didn't style these yet, so let's put class equals, and we'll just give them a class of, in a quote, I'll put btn in a quote and a space. So now they have a class and an ID. So the class will be for styling, and the ID will be for identifying. So I'm just going to paste the class here. They'll all have the same class and different IDs. And we could have used buttons, but I figured we did this before, so we're going to do it like that. So now we have a class of buttons, so we can style these with padding and the color and all that kind of stuff. And if they're links or whatever, they're hyperlinks, we can do all that. So that stuff we still have to do. So again, we're building this slow, and that's okay. So let's style a little bit so it at least shows up on one line. So let's see, what do we have to style here in nav? We have a background color for nav, and I'll go here for the class for btn, and for the buttons, I'm going to put display inline block. I think inline block should put them all on a line. And actually, let's make the color white before we do anything else. Color white. Again, we're just kind of working with this as we go. We'll probably have to change stuff, but that's okay. I just want to kind of think it out. So I didn't plan this all out and say, here's the finished product. I just want to think this out with you. So, and there we go. So that's kind of the way we want it. Now we don't have our padding around each element. We don't have the right font, all that kind of stuff. And we actually want them to look like buttons too. So we're going to style them the way we want them. So we may make them a different color. We may make this a different color. We could put a hover state, all that kind of stuff. But just so they look a little better, let's put font family, and let's just do sans serif for now, just to make them sans serif. And let's put some padding around. And what we'll do, we'll try to use ems, or we'll even try to use rems. I did a lesson on rems in our typography class. Rems are basically the same as ems, except they're always root. They always go back to the root, meaning they're always based on, not on the element that you're in, but based on the original root. So if your base font is 16 pixels, then rems will always be based on that. Whereas if you change a font size in here, ems will be based on that font size. So I just wanted to point that out. So if you ever see rems, let's try to use rems. So rems would work just like ems. So they should be based on 16 pixels, which is our default right now. If you don't change anything, Google uses 16 pixels as your default font size. So let's try maybe 0.5, like 8 pixels on the top and bottom, 0.5, and I'll use rem, and then a space, and I'll use 1 rem. That should be 16 pixels. And we may need more, but let's see what that looks like so far. So we're using rems, which are basically like ems. So they're basically based on 16 pixels. So this would be 16 pixels, this would be 8 pixels on the top and bottom. This would be top and bottom, this would be left and right. Let's see what it looks like so far. Now that looks a little better. They could probably go a little bit bigger. We could go font size, and I'll do like 1.2 rem and see what that looks like. And that looks a little better. And we can probably put more space between these. I'm thinking we could probably even go 2 rem, and not a whole lot on the top and bottom, maybe like 0.6. Spread these out a little bit, and we don't have them centered yet. So how would we center our buttons? Now we could try something like this. If they treat them like text, we could try this and just try text align center and see if that does it, meaning it just treats the buttons like text. See if that works. And that works. I don't know if that's going to be our best option, but we can try that for now. Like I said, we can change things as we go, and we'll worry about putting kind of a negative margin in there. There's some issue with that strip that we can fix. So we're going to treat these things as buttons that control the pictures that are showing up there. We'll start by doing this. So remember, to turn these things into buttons, we don't have to make them hyperlinks yet because they're not necessarily going somewhere else, but we can make them clickable. So we'll kind of style these like buttons first. I don't know if we have to make them hyperlinks just yet to make them do what they need to do, but we'll go from here and kind of get them started. So what we could do is think about how we can color these a little bit. We'll give them maybe a different background color than the nav. So I'm going to copy the nav, so we're kind of in that family. And there's a background color, and I'll just go in here and maybe I'll make it a little, maybe a little darker. And see how that looks. Now they're a little darker, and we even have a little separation in there. That's okay. I don't mind them looking like that. What we'll do is we'll do like a hover state. So we can do btn : hover, if you remember that. I think that's the way we do it. Again, I'm just kind of going here. I'm not looking it up, but we'll try btn hover. We'll just kind of change the background on hover. Maybe we'll go a little, I don't know, a little lighter maybe, and see what that looks like. See if that works. And that looks fine. That's nice for now. We can do different colors, but that looks okay. Now we'll see if we can get rid of this little strip here. We'll see if we can kind of make these things work a little bit, and we may have to change our button into like a little hover kind of thing, or we can actually make them linkable, meaning they're hyperlinked. Now, they wouldn't be linking to a page or anything. We'd put kind of a dummy link in there, a pound sign, an anchor link, but we could try this the way it is so far and see if these work. So that's where we're going so far. Let's see if we can get rid of that space in there. Let's try to do this. Let's try to do margin, because I think you could do negative margin. So let's do margin dash top, and let's do negative, I don't know how much that is. It looks like it's about 4 pixels or something. Let's do negative 4 pix and see if that helps us. That helps us, so we're good with that. I'm not sure what's causing those little gaps in there, but I'm not worried about it right now. That looks fine. We could change the background color of this, make it, maybe make it black. Maybe it looks, maybe we got too much green going on. Maybe this can be even darker. The nav could be even darker, like really, really dark like that, or brown or something like that. But let's see what this looks like. And I actually don't like it as much, but now everything is a little too dark. Maybe we could use something lighter to contrast. Maybe we could pull up a little lighter color, or a blue, or something different, maybe even a little browner. So let me try that. Let me go in here and I'll go into like kind of orangey. Maybe I'll just do a brown for now, and we'll deal with that. Okay. Don't like that either. I think I liked it better the way it was when I started. So I'm gonna go back to whatever this was. I could take my eyedropper and I'll go find my button and do that. Just make it a little lighter. Yeah, that's fine for now. I'll deal with that. So that's part 2. I think I'll stop here. So we have some of our CSS set up. I didn't put any copy in here yet, but we're just going to use these and be changing the picture up here. The idea is to kind of practice with vanilla JavaScript. But when I say vanilla JavaScript, I mean we're not using jQuery, we're not using any kind of frameworks or anything like that. We're coding our JavaScript ourselves. We're writing our functions, writing our JavaScript. That's what we're doing. So we're just using basic JavaScript right now. Let me actually put borders around here. Let me see if I could put a border. Border. Remember, when we do a border, we do a size. I'll do 1 pix, space, I'll do solid, and then space, and then I'll do white. And just see what that looks like if I put a border on our pseudo buttons that we have there. That's okay. Maybe even go a little bit thicker, maybe 2 pix. See what that looks like. You could try different things. You could put round corners on them or whatever, but the idea of having them in this bar, I didn't necessarily want that, but so I'm not sure right now. I'll leave them there for now, but if I want to take them away, it's just as easy as just deleting that line. So I'm going to stop here with part 2. With part 3, we'll try to get into our JavaScript a little bit and start controlling these pics, which are just sitting on our page right now. We didn't put them as a background image behind some kind of header. We just have them sticking there. So we'll try that first, and then if we want to do something else, we'll keep doing that. So that's part 2 of our EX14, our 4 seasons, using buttons to kind of control images.